I'm Major League Fishing Pro Greg Hackney, and this is a recap for the first event of the year at Eufaula. You know, it's one of those deals where, first week of February, prime time for that part of the South. When we got there, the lake was stable, off-colored. The lake really wouldn't do anything. Water temperature was warming up. It was already, low 50s in some places, mid to high 50s in other places. While we were there, we had a huge amount of rain, and the lake really started coming up. And it was one of those deals where I had found one big creek that, didn't have a lot of bite. Didn't seem like it had a lot of bites, but it had some good bites. And I was catching on a black and blue thunder cricket. Had a black rage swimmer on the back of it. And I was just fishing the outside edge of dead bank grass or water willow. And it was dead anywhere I could find a channel swing. Totally got blown out during practice. It turned orange. The lake came up 3.5 foot. I pretty much abandoned that whole deal, and but I knew that rain was coming, and so one of the things I done, I ran pockets in practice. Didn't fish in them a lot, but just ran places on the lake that you didn't have a lot of drain, where there would be a lot of run in from that dirty water, and they stayed clear. And I got a bite or two in those areas, but it wasn't as good as my other deal. But I ended up having to fish, one of those deals, having to fish the backup plan. The first day of the event, I fished in the first round. The lake is up 3 feet from what it was the first 2 days of practice. The place I started in, now there's cypress trees with 3 foot of water. And I really, kind of started, it was a place where I'd had a big bite, an area I'd had a big bite, but I kind of started to turn it off practicing. And I started the event, just flipping a 1/2 ounce Strike King Hack Attack jig. That watercolor, black and blue or darker color didn't look good in it. Sexy Crawl is perfect for me because it's kind of that natural look, but also is good in dirty water. I matched it with a double header Rage Crawl. I start off flipping that. I get a couple big bites right off on that. And then as the day developed in the first round, I found fish chasing shad in these pockets, in some of that newly flooded grass, and I started swimming a white Strike King Hack Attack swim jig and just putting a matching Rage Crawl on the back. And it was really a tough tournament for me in that I just had to cover a lot of water. I didn't get a lot of bites. They were just all big ones. Everything that bit me was 3 to 6 pounds. And I didn't catch a lot of fish, but I just covered a lot of water. And basically what I'd done, it was really perfect for me. It's 2 of my favorite techniques are flipping a jig and swimming a jig. So maybe they probably are my 2 favorite techniques. So I basically, when I got in those areas where there was nothing to flip, I just swam that jig, stayed around that bank grass and ran those pockets where the shad, so anytime I was in those areas where there was shad, I swam that white jig. And, when I got on, I flipped some main lake cypress trees. The lake fell 3 foot from the first round to the second round. And just one of those deals you had to keep changing. It ended up being 1 offshore. And I didn't spend a lot of time offshore because I knew that water was coming and I was expecting the lake to come up. What I did not expect was them to be able to get 3.5 feet of water out of a lake that size in 2 days. And, you live and you learn. You got to be prepared for everything. And so that was, one of those events. It wasn't a disaster. I started off, I got paid, got some points, and we're at Okeechobee this week, so I'm hoping for a little better outcome. But I feel like I survived the first one, and that's one thing about bass fishing. Every day is a learning experience. Probably the biggest thing I should have changed was spent more time fishing offshore. I went there looking for hydrilla. I had been to the lake 2 years before, and the lake was full of hydrilla. What I didn't realize, a hurricane that had come, the hurricane that hit Mexico Beach, basically just rolled right on up through that part of the country and wiped out the hydrilla. I had actually went there with intentions of fishing offshore. When I got there and all the hydrilla was gone and the water was dirty, and the lake was stable and full, I expected that shallow bite to play. And basically it was 1 shallow, but it was 1 offshore shallow. It wasn't 1 deep, it was 1 shallow, but it was 1 offshore. And it was perfect conditions. That when that water sucked, most of those fish that had been up there shallow, moved back. And I just hadn't really looked for anything to, for them to go back on. I tried to stick with what got me there because I felt like conditions were changing again. And then if I could survive to the final round, there was a chance to win shallow. I really thought that it was going to be won that way. And, and again, I think had conditions stayed, it would have. But, you know, I just learned to, you know, you have to prepare for everything. Kind of the way I've prepared here, you know, I prepared for this weather. I saw it coming. You have to do that in this deal, and you have to change on the fly. You know, that's one thing about this format too. I probably leave a lot more tackle in my boat. I practice with a lot more tackle in my boat. You just have to be able to make so many changes. And the other deal is because we don't fish for limits, you know, like, so here a 2-pound bass is scoreable, but I can weigh in 100 the first day if I can catch 100. So it takes a lot more fish now than what it did in the past. You know, used to you just looking for 5 bass a day. Well, you know, we got rid of the old school mentality of doing that. So now you got to look for huge groups of fish. And now with them taking a 2-pounder to be scoreable, I mean, you got to look for huge groups of big fish, you know, to do well. And, you know, that's how the first event turned out. You know, the guy that won the last day, Jacob Wheeler, had 60 plus pounds on the last day of scoreable bass. And that's pretty awesome to be able to do that on day 4. You know, having enough fish not only to qualify for day 4, but being able to catch that kind of weight on the last day. So it's a fun deal we do. This is a new learning experience for me. This is basically, we're just starting year number 2. And so I learned a lot the first year. And of course they threw a curve in it, because the first year, you know, a 1-pound bass was scoreable at all the events, and now they have to be 2 pounds. And there's a big difference in fishing for a fish over 2 pounds and fishing for a rat 1-pounder, I promise you. And make sure to stay tuned and watch all the episodes of Kings of Bass, because I know these other guys in this group, and it's a strong group, and it's going to be fun to watch.